Hi. In a previous video, or let's say the part 1, we have seen the pulmonary circulation and the peculiar features of the pulmonary circulation. Now this video is about the pulmonary circulation and one particular dimension, and that's pulmonary vascular resistance and the clinical application of it, and that is pulmonary hypertension. So let's understand this particular dimension of the pulmonary circulation. First point, we have seen this already, that the pulmonary circulation is a low pressure circulation and a low resistance circulation. I would suggest you all to refer to the first part of this video dealing with the pulmonary circulation and its features. So there we've seen that it's a low resistance circulation. This is relative to the systemic circulation, which is a high pressure and high resistance circulation. Pulmonary vasculature or pulmonary circulation is a low resistance one, and its resistance is almost 1/10 of that of the systemic circulation. So that's the first feature or first point related to the pulmonary vascular resistance. It's almost 1/10 of the systemic circulation. Second point, and this will be important, that the pulmonary vascular resistance is lowest when the lungs are at FRC. That's a very important point. What I am trying to establish here is that pulmonary vascular resistance depends on the lung volume at any given moment. Let me explain this. Look, at the end of quiet expiration, the lungs are at functional residual capacity, FRC. And at that point, at that stage, at that volume of the lung, the pulmonary vascular resistance will be at its lowest. What do I mean here is that on either side, I mean for inspiration, if the person takes a deep forceful inspiration or if deep forceful expiration is taken, imagine this, that the person exhales maximally, forcefully and maximally, the lungs will be at residual volume. Only residual volume will be left in the lungs. Or on the other hand, if the person takes a maximum forceful inspiration, the lungs will be reaching the total lung capacity, highest volumes. So near the higher volumes or near the lower volumes, that is at near residual volume, the pulmonary vascular resistance will be higher, and it is lowest when the lungs are at functional residual capacity, that is at the end of quiet expiration. We have done a video on lung volumes and capacities. So there you can refer to that video as well. At the end of quiet expiration, the lungs are at FRC and this resistance is lowest. And this is understandable, because if the person takes a deep forceful inspiration, look, it is like this. Let's have a representative view of the lungs and the blood vessels that are associated with the alveoli. So if a person takes a deep forceful inspiration, what is going to happen is the alveoli will distend maximally with air. Distension of the alveoli with air, as the person has taken a forceful inspiration, this distension is going to compress the pulmonary vessels, and if those vessels are compressed, constricted, the resistance to the blood flow will increase. So that is at higher lung volumes, the vascular resistance, the pulmonary vascular resistance will be higher. Similarly, if it's a forceful exhalation, if the person is making a forceful expiration, even then the recoil of the lung parenchyma, the recoil of the lung tissue is going to compress these vessels again, and therefore again the vascular resistance will be higher. So higher lung volumes or lower lung volumes, the vascular resistance will be high. It is lowest at the end of quiet expiration. Remember, when the lungs are at FRC, it is said to be the equilibrium position of the respiratory system. It's the equilibrium position. Why? Because the outward force on the thoracic cage and the inward force on the lung, inward recoil tendency of the lungs, these forces are equal and opposite, and they tend to cancel out each other. So that is said to be the equilibrium position. The lungs are at FRC, and that is when the vascular resistance will be least, lowest or minimum relatively. Right. Next point. Pulmonary capillary bed contributes maximum. Almost 40% of the total pulmonary vascular resistance is contributed by the pulmonary capillary bed. Now this is again different. This is in contrast with the systemic circulation, because in the case of systemic circulation, arterioles contribute maximally. Arterioles are called as resistance vessels in the systemic circulation. They are the major contributors to the vascular resistance to the blood flow, because they are narrower as compared to the aorta and arteries, and they are little stiffer compared to the compliance vessels. So therefore, arterioles in the case of systemic circulation, they contribute maximally to the resistance. In the case of lungs, in the case of pulmonary vascular bed, capillaries contribute almost 40% to the pulmonary vascular resistance. Now, let's try to calculate and find out how much is this resistance. Look, by Ohm's law, Q is equal to delta P upon R, right? That's very well known to us. Q is the flow, blood flow in this case. Delta P, or we can say P1 minus P2 upon the resistance, right? So therefore, R, resistance, which we are out to calculate, is equal to delta P upon Q. Now, Q is blood flow, right? And blood flow through the lungs will be the same as cardiac output. Let's say cardiac output is about 6 liters per minute. So this amount of blood is going through the lungs every minute, because that's the cardiac output. So that much blood circulates through the lungs per minute. That's the blood flow, Q, denominator. We are calculating the resistance by Ohm's law. Now coming to the numerator, delta P, P1 minus P2. Now pulmonary artery pressure, that's P1, and that's about 14 mm of Hg. And you know, from the pulmonary artery to the pulmonary capillaries, then pulmonary vein carries the oxygenated blood to the left side of the heart. So P1 minus P2 will be pulmonary artery pressure minus the left atrial pressure. That's the P1 minus P2. That will be the delta P for the pulmonary circulation. I hope you understand this. Pulmonary artery is carrying the blood into the lungs, into the pulmonary vasculature, and then that blood goes back to the left atrium, and therefore we have to see the difference between the pulmonary artery pressure and the left atrial pressure. That will be the P1 minus P2 or delta P. Left atrial pressure is in the range of 6 to 8 mm of Hg. So you can see now 14 minus 8, if we take 8 mm of Hg as the left atrial pressure, pulmonary artery pressure minus the left atrial pressure, that's delta P. That is 6 mm of Hg. And therefore, the pulmonary vascular resistance is 1 mm of Hg per liter per minute, right? Let's write it again, 1.0 mm of Hg per liter per minute. That's the normal pulmonary vascular resistance, and that's how any resistance can be calculated. Next is, let's see the clinical application of this. The disease processes which involve, now we are talking about the application of this knowledge. The disease processes that involve hypoxia, they will lead to increase in the pulmonary vascular resistance. Now it's very obvious to understand if we have already seen that first video where I have discussed that the hypoxia leads to vasoconstriction in the lungs. So any disease that causes hypoxia will cause vasoconstriction in the pulmonary vascular bed, and this is going to increase the pulmonary vascular resistance. So remember, the diseases such as pulmonary edema, pulmonary embolism, cardiovascular diseases, these all will lead to hypoxic situations in the lungs and thereby increase in the pulmonary vascular resistance. Also, one needs to understand that the clinical condition would be called as pulmonary hypertension. Increased pulmonary vascular resistance will be called as pulmonary hypertension. Now, this pulmonary hypertension or increased pulmonary artery pressure, we can write it as pulmonary artery hypertension or simply pulmonary hypertension. This is of two types. One, the primary pulmonary hypertension, and two, pulmonary hypertension secondary to some other cause, some other underlying mechanism, underlying pathology. Just like systemic hypertension, where we divide it into essential hypertension and secondary hypertension. Secondary hypertension is due to some organic pathology or some underlying disease. So similarly, even here it's the primary pulmonary hypertension. We are talking PAH is pulmonary artery hypertension. It can be primary or secondary to some other disease mechanism. Primary pulmonary hypertension is also called as idiopathic hypertensive vasculopathy. This is also called as idiopathic hypertensive vasculopathy. So, these terminologies should be understood when do we use them, in what context, and we call it idiopathic hypertensive vasculopathy when the hypertensive is exclusively affecting the pulmonary circulation. There is no involvement of the systemic circulation, exclusive involvement of the pulmonary vasculature. That's when we call it idiopathic hypertensive vasculopathy. What's the criteria for pulmonary hypertension? The criteria for the pulmonary hypertension is sustained elevation of the mean pulmonary artery pressure of more than 25 mm of Hg. We have already taken the pulmonary artery pressure, normal pressure, to be 14 mm of Hg. If it elevates and it becomes more than 25 mm of Hg in a sustained manner at rest, or more than 30 mm of Hg after the exercise. We are talking about the pulmonary artery pressure. If it is more than these, more than 25 at rest or more than 30 mm of Hg after the exercise, then that. But yes, let me complete the sentence. In the absence of a left-sided cardiac pressure, in the absence of any abnormal elevation of left-sided atrial pressure or left-sided increased pressure. If left atrial pressure has not increased, okay, and pulmonary artery pressure has increased. Let me explain this again. Left atrial pressure has not increased. See, normally, you know, if there is a left-sided failure, then there is damming back of the blood into the pulmonary vasculature. If there is a right-sided heart failure, then the blood is dammed in the systemic veins. So, in the absence of any left atrial increase in the pressure, just if the pulmonary artery pressure is increasing and it's going beyond these levels, then you will label it as primary pulmonary hypertension. So, keep that in mind, that the left atrial pressure or left-sided pressure, let's say, hasn't increased, only pulmonary vascular pressure has increased. What could be the pathogenesis of this? I'm not going to go into the details of the medicine part of it, the pathogenesis or medicine. So, just summary part is, there is pulmonary endothelial dysfunction. The pulmonary vessels have those endothelial linings. The pulmonary endothelial dysfunction or injury is said to be involved in this kind of a primary pulmonary hypertension. So, that is a summary of the pulmonary vascular resistance and pulmonary hypertension. I have deliberately restricted the scope of this video into the physiology rather than talking much about the pathophysiology. We will discuss about the pathophysiology of hypertension or pulmonary artery hypertension in the next video or in some other video.